Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. We appreciate your attendance and your interest in peace. I'm going to introduce Art Stady. Art. And Art is in the Iowa State Legislature. He's also a peace activist and concerned about our national situation. And our Veterans for Peace group is open for membership of veterans and non-veterans. So we're very interested in adding to our membership. We've got a scholarship program, as you can see on one of those handouts. And as you can see, we also have national speakers come in once or twice a year. So with that, Kucinich, Art.
Thank you to all of you for being here tonight, and thank you for giving me the honor to introduce tonight's speaker. I met the key speaker and his wife Elizabeth during my first political race in 2003. We were at a then County Democrats picnic at Thomas Park in Marion. I was running for the Iowa House, and he was campaigning to become President of the United States. That afternoon, as I recall, a woman at the picnic was extremely distraught and visibly distressed about some of the crisis and critical issues in her life. And many of us picnickers had listened to her laments and had failed in our efforts to comfort her. She just would not be comforted. When our speaker arrived, she dashed right for him and shared her concerns. Within a matter of moments, he had his arm around her and was consoling her almost magically. I have not forgotten the gentle kindness of his character that was displayed that day. Former United States Representative, Democrat from Ohio. Born on October the 8th, 1946 in Cleveland, Ohio. The eldest of 7 children by parents Frank and Virginia. He first ventured into politics while still a student at Cleveland State University, winning a seat on the Cleveland City Council in 1969. Received a master's degree in communications from Iowa's Case Western Reserve University in 1973. In 1977, he became the youngest mayor in Cleveland, Ohio's history. In addition to being mayor of Cleveland, he served as council member for the city, as the clerk of courts for the Cleveland Municipal Courts, and as an Ohio State Senator. We could use him this year. In 1996, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives and has been a progressive proponent of environmental initiatives, sustainability practices, human rights, and social and economic interests. He is known for his idealism, his activism, and his relentless spirit. When I first met him in 2003, he had already begun his campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination with the platform highlighting human rights and environmental initiatives. In his campaign for the 2008 presidential nomination, he called then for universal health care and an immediate withdrawal from abroad. He is here tonight with his wife Elizabeth. She too, a champion for health, human rights, animals, and the environment, and the director of policy at the Center for Food Safety. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, with a warm welcome, to Congressman Dennis Kucinich.
For years, I would go on speaking occasions, And sometimes I'd be introduced in this way. For a man who needs no introduction, no introduction. But I want to say to the representative how honored I am not only to have your presence here and the presence of Senator Hope, but to have you recite a narrative of the work that my life's been about, my wife's life is about. So I want to thank you for your kindness. And I would ask all of you who are here to thank these two fine representatives of the people of Iowa who serve in the Iowa legislature. So before I start, I just need some help here. I feel like I'm at a distance from you. What I'm going to do, there's a microphone here, and I'm going to disconnect it and put it on and then come down. There's a small recorder here which I'm going to bring down. So bring this down. Testing. Okay, all set? Now who's this? Okay. Can you, if I put this here, will you be able to pick it up? Can you get it? Sure? Okay. All those years in the state and union have served me well, I guess. Before I begin, thank you. Before I begin, I would like to make a personal introduction. A woman who, when she walked through the door of my congressional office on May 4th, 2005, little did I know how dramatically my life would change in short order. She came to the United States only 2 weeks to talk about monetary policy. And frankly, when I met her, I wasn't thinking about monetary policy. But since it would have been inappropriate to think about anything other than monetary policy or to talk about it during our meeting, I left it to a chance meeting we had in New Mexico a couple months later to meet her for a second time, upon which we both decided we wanted to get married. You know, and I know what the right thing is to do, I go quickly. So I want to introduce my wife, Elizabeth. Tomorrow, Elizabeth and I will be in Des Moines for the Occupy the World Food Prize meeting, which is about it's a gathering of people who are really concerned about agriculture that's sensitive to the needs of people, not corporations. And so we'll be speaking at this event in Des Moines, and then I think the same day or the following day, Elizabeth, is the same day? The same day, Elizabeth is getting a national award as, tell me if I have this right, the Feisty Woman Award.
Strong Feisty Woman Award.
What is it?
Strong Feisty Woman Award.
The strong, yes, the strong Feisty Woman Award. You know, if they, and of course I seconded that nomination. And I'm so grateful that all of you were able to make it here tonight. There are no sunshine patriots here. This has been a very rainy day. in Iowa. I've been back and forth to Iowa City, and just continuous rain. And I'm very surprised that people care so much about events in our nation and the world, that they brave a cold, rainy day to be here, so that we can talk about the real and deeper meaning of national security. We are here in a hall that's dedicated to veterans. I come from a family of veterans. My father, Frank, was a World War II veteran who fought in the 1st Marine Division, I think it was the first, and served in the South Pacific. Was wounded at a place called Bougainville, right about the same time they were having battles on Guadalcanal. He had his knee shot out, and his entire life was, from that moment on, changed, because he didn't have the use of his knee. And as a truck driver, it made his work a little bit more difficult as life went on. But he was so proud of his service that he taught all of us, all the 7 children that he and my mom had, to serve. And while I had a heart murmur, I didn't have a chance to serve in the armed forces, but my brother Frank Jr. served in the Vietnam War. And I know that families of those who serve always are concerned about their loved one, not only that their loved one returns, but that they return in one piece. And Frank went in at 18 years old, saw tremendous combat. In one action, there were about 6 men killed around him, and it scarred him for life. And when he came back home, he couldn't get away from the experience that he had. He was a very gentle young man, but he couldn't get away from this experience of having all these people killed around him. And it changed his whole life. That was his frame of reference. Finally, in order to help get a life that was organized and stable, he lived the last 18 years of his life at a veterans home in Sandusky, Ohio, where he in turn served other veterans. My brother Gary served in the Vietnam era as an instructor in physical education in the Marines. My sister Beth Ann was in the Army. And when she passed, as fate would have it, she died on Veterans Day. Our whole family, as the families of so many people in this audience, have a sense of commitment to our country, a real love of the country. Like a love of the country that if America was on the line, we're all there for our country. We believe in our country. When I see the flag pass by, I get chills. Watching a parade, and I'm sure many of you have that feeling. There's something special about America. When I hear the Star-Spangled Banner play, I feel it. I just feel it. And when I had the chance to serve in the United States Congress, it was such a great honor to be part of that sweep of history, to stand in a place, in a capital where Abraham Lincoln stood, in the House of Representatives, and where other great Americans at one time or another had a chance to be, and I had the chance to be there. When I went to Congress, I come from Cleveland, Ohio, and my sensibilities are pretty much middle American. I believe that what you see is what you get. I don't think there's always a con around the corner. I don't think people are always lying to you. I think there's something about you take things at face value, and you're willing to work hard to get ahead. You don't believe in lying, cheating, or stealing. But when you get inside the government, take somebody like me who got inside the government, I looked at what went on, and I went, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't know the country was run this way. So when we're here to talk today about how do we redefine national security, or can we redefine national security? How do we make the transition from the terror of 9/11, which we all felt, to 11/11, representing armistice, peace, reconciliation. Elizabeth and I are touring the country, starting in Iowa, to begin this new discussion, how do we define national security? Even more deeply, how do we define human security? We all want to be safe. Are we any more safer today than we were after the United States went to war against Iraq? So I'd like to start this discussion by having you tell me how you would define security. Just before we do that, I want to ask you, for those of you who are using social media, we have a Twitter handle, the hashtag 9/11 to 11/11. So if any of you want to engage in that discussion and communicate your thoughts to that, being in Iowa is about starting national discussions. People come here seeking high office. They want to start a national discussion. But instead of me being the one who is just doing all the talking, I want to hear from you. So if you're using Twitter, that's the hashtag, and start it. Or we've got the senator right now is signing a sheet. We're collecting emails so we can broaden the discussion and keep you involved. But right now, let me ask you, and I'd just like any of you to let's start a discussion. Help me, help the country. Let's define national security. What does it mean to you? Is it only about having armaments, manpower, woman power, invading other countries? What constitutes national security? Please, let's start a discussion. I need your participation. Anyone? Yes.
When I say security starts with having a roof over your head and food in your stomach.
Okay, and what's your name?
Laura.
Laura just said that security starts with having a roof over your head and food in your stomach. How many would agree with that? Okay. Who else? Security. Yes.
I would add that security has to be clean water, clean air, and a healthy environment. Because none of us are secure if we don't have.
And your name?
Linda.
Linda. Okay. So Linda just said security, clean air, clean water, a clean environment. That if you don't have that, if we don't all have that, we're diminished. Yes, security.
I think it's important to say that I need to have shelter and food, clean water, and so forth, but I am not secure unless my neighbors have that too. And by neighbors, I mean not next door to me, I mean Africa and Iraq and all over the world. We're one family, one human race, and if people are starving and insecure in Africa or whatever, then I can't be truly secure. And I certainly can't be secure how to do that.
Okay, the applause, which I think was merited, also covered the last statement that the gentleman said, which is that you can't be secure when what? Would you repeat that?
When the U.S. is dropping bombs all over the world and killing people.
Okay.
That makes me very insecure.
That makes you insecure.
Yes.
Now let's look at this for a moment. What's your first name, sir?
Cole.
Cole. Cole just said something that I think is profound. He talked about the world being interconnected. That what happens in any place in the world affects all of us. What happens to another person affects all of us. That we're a brother's keeper, our sister's keeper. You're talking about solidarity with all people. You're talking about something that actually is a principle upon which the United States was founded. If you look at the first motto of the United States, the very first motto, E pluribus unum, translated from the Latin, out of many, one. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. That was not only about the unity of the states or the unity of the colonies. It was about human unity, that we're all one. We are today, we know this, if we know something more today than ever, It's how closely the world is connected. We're interconnected, we are interdependent. If you can pick up a cell phone and you can call someone anywhere in the world within a minute, anywhere in the world, you could send a text message instantly. It's really, for those of us who grew up in the 50s and 60s, it is astonishing when you think that you can actually, on a little box, send a text message, and somebody has the communication on the other side of the world instantaneously. That is miraculous. And the fact that you can get on a plane and fly anywhere within 12 hours, to be about almost both places in the world, you can never take that for granted. But one thing it does do, it's not only about a recitation of how marvelous our technology is, it's about that we are connected to each other. We're not estranged. And so when, as Cole just talked about, our nation made some decisions. Our leaders made some decisions in 2001 after 9/11, perhaps before that. But certainly in October of 2002, a decision was made to go to war against Iraq. Now, at that time, I was in the United States Congress. Remember, we were talking about the theme of this presentation that Elizabeth and I are taking around the country, from 9/11 to 11/11, 9/11 terror. I was in Washington on 9/11. I heard the explosion that hit the Pentagon, when the plane hit the Pentagon. I was with thousands of people in the street when you heard this big boom that ran down the street. It was surreal. I felt, as many people did, this sense of an overwhelming sense of concern about what's happening to our country. We care about our country. We have an obligation to protect and defend our country. But what happens when that concern that we have gets appropriated for purposes that have nothing to do with defending America? I was fortunate, coming from my family, to be able to work my way through college after 9-10 years. I finally got a bachelor's and master's degree, working part-time while I was going to school, working full-time, going to school part-time. And because of the education I had, in some ways, but also because of the fact that my father was a truck driver and he had the education of the street and he gave that to me, no one was going to put anything over me. So when I heard the stories about, well, Iraq this, Iraq that, I was kind of, show me, I want to see this. Where's the proof? And the deeper I got into asking the questions, people couldn't produce proof. And they're already getting ready for a war. I said, why are you doing this? So I started to organize members of Congress, and I said, they're not answering the questions. What does Iraq have to do with 9/11? Nothing. Does Iraq have the intention of attacking us? No. Do they have the capability? $4 billion a year they were spending for their defense, and the United States already, at that point, was already spending over $450 billion. There's no comparison. They were not a threat, and they did not have the weapons of mass destruction. There's no proof they had it. So I kept asking these questions. I couldn't get the answers. I opposed the war. And yet I saw the consequences of that war. Almost 4,600 Americans dead. Tens of thousands injured for life. $4 to $5 trillion is just the war will cost. And over 1 million innocent Iraqis. Cole, you talked about how we're all connected. Over 1 million innocent Iraqis perished as a result of this war.
And that's never made note of in the media, by the government. They talk about the 4,000 Americans, well, that's a terrible thing, but it's Vietnam again. When we talk about 50,000, we don't know how many millions of Vietnamese we killed.
Well, the estimate of Vietnamese that perished were 3 million.
Yes.
And so the point being that we've had this terrible cost, and our concerns were appropriated in service of, unfortunately, I think, an ideological position that had been preordained before even 9/11. So here we are, paying the cost, bearing the burden, veterans still paying the cost, people in Iraq still paying the cost, and we're at it again. So how do we get away from this grip of terror? That's really one of the questions we're asking. Because is there anyone here who thinks that if a foreign power invaded the United States and killed, you had 4% of the Iraqi population die? If we had 4% of our population, that'd be 12 million people. Is there anyone who thinks that if 12 million Americans were killed, that we would just forget it and say, oh, just forget it, that's okay, let's be friends? Not a chance. Well, why do you think we're still encountering people who are interested in attacking? Because we haven't found a way to tell the truth and to pursue a path of reconciliation. This has nothing to do with whether one's a Democrat or Republican. I could care less. It has nothing to do with anyone's liberal or conservative. Doesn't matter. We're all